views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So here's what I want to say. Thank you for tuning us in and turning us on. For many of you that are listening to this, you may or may not even know who I am. I am Dr. Pat Basile. I'm the host of the Dr. Pat Show. I'm also somebody that loves to talk about how to change the world, how to create a better world. Up until this particular show, and I want to thank my friends at CRN, Mike Horn, Jennifer Horn, all the people out there. In this hour, there was a show, Mike Murphy Unfiltered, and Mike is not going to be doing that show in this time spot any longer. What it did was, and this is kind of the story I want to share with you, is I have always thought about who I wanted to become and what I wanted to do in talk radio. And one of the things I realized last year and the year before is I spent 15 years doing the Dr. Pat Show. And by the way, that show was called Crust Busting Your Way to an Awesome Life. It was about living life full out. But one of the things I realized, and I realized this talking to Mike Horn, was all of those years, it's been about bringing on close to 9,000, doing about 9,000 shows, right? You think about them and count them up, right? At one point, 14 hours a week. Now I do 10 hours a week. Plus, we're probably going to add this too, because this is passion and purpose for me. But most of the time when I've done this show, it's been about other people. It's not really been about things. It's not really been about what many people know about me when I'm not on air. Some of the things I do. Let me give you an example. And I don't know if Kat, she's running the show on Facebook Live. I'm going to have to send her to one of our Dropbox folders so she can pull some images. But one of the things you guys may or may not know is that, back in 2004 and 2005, many people across the country were faced with a chronic disease. And to this day, it's still not fully recognized. Although I must say, it is making the mainstream. I think even on Grace and Frankie, they did a little side-by comment about something, and they made a reference to Lyme disease. So back in the day, that was that. And so myself, Dr. Ronnie, Dr. Darvish, we are out there, and we literally have been beating the bushes down to say, look, this is a thing. So this month is a month of May, and this is an awareness month for Lyme disease. So one of the things I discovered along the way to doing this, and also discovered along the way to how I can personally evolve, somebody that is out in the world that's always been an advocate. I've been called a rebel. I've been called a pioneer in digital media. Like 15 years ago, in 2003, when I dialed the wrong phone number and I pulled out a credit card and I spent like 10 grand on internet radio. 2003, everybody my friends wanted have me committed. They're like, what? Internet radio? Like Al Gore just invented that. But here's the thing. Each of us get to change and grow. So one of the things that I had to decide about to do this show, and this show is not going to be called the Dr. Pat Show. And there's a reason for that. I do a separate show called Lyme Talk Radio. I do the Dr. Pat Show. Dr. Darvish and I are going to be doing Health Hit Radio. This is a different kind of show. This is the show where me, the girl from District 14 in the Bronx, gets to show up and talk about things that are heavy on my mind, but positive in a place of what we can do. So a lot of times, what I do on my show, and I love doing it, is I talk about uplifting, inspiring, innovative. What do you want to do? How are you going to do it? Who's going to do it? When are you going to do it? Let's provide solutions. This particular show is going to be a little different. And right now, I got a group of people that are looking at the potential names for the show. So let me give you a couple of ideas so you get the vibration of where we're going to be coming from here. So one of the ideas is to call the show something that was so much a part of my life ages ago. I'd love to hear from you guys, if you have any opinion about this. One of the things that I grew up on the streets. I grew up on the streets in New York. So one of the ideas for this show is called Street Smart Radio. And Street Smart is also the podcast version. So that was an idea. And, the other idea for the show was to carry forth the idea of what it means to be powered up, what it means to really step forward in your life in the most courageous, out of the box, sometimes not politically correct way. And I'm like a quadruple Sagittarian. So I got to tell you right now, being politically correct is a daily practice for me, like every day, like 24/7. How do you do that? And then trying to really look at what this wants to be about, this show. So a couple of ideas that were thrown out about this 2-hour block we're going to do. One of them is with CRN. We're hoping to do the other one with CRN as well, but it's on our Transformation Talk Radio Network. The question really has been, since I came out at the last moment, right? We just got notification that Mike was not going to continue his show. So it's kind of like, what do we do? And I thought the universe is so cool, because one of the things the universe does is it puts things in front of us that you wouldn't ordinarily step into and say you're going to do. And so here it is. Just like every other incident for me, I dial a wrong number in 2003. I end up on radio. In 2008, I'm helping somebody launch a network. They write a bad check and disappear. Oh, station owner says, why don't you start a network? Transformation Talk Radio. Now we're moving into the Transformation Network, 10 channels to be launched. And they were all really cool channels, right? Everything from a channel that has to do with the cosmos to a political channel called Politica. And so I was talking the other day to somebody who said to me, look at, you grew up, Pat, like the Woodstock thing. You grew up as an activist. You grew up and brought up a very controversial issue the other day on your show when I had a caller call in when I mentioned the ERA, and they thought I was talking about the NRA, and I was talking about the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. And the question was, after I turned to a bunch of the folks that work for me that are literally like a few years younger than me, and I asked the question, do you all know what the ERA is? Do you know that in this country, women don't have equal rights? And so here we are, and here I am on a crossroads of how I want to bring a new level, a new energy, and a new conversation to the forefront. And so here it is in front of me. Now, let me tell you, I created this crust busting thing because I was so depressed. I was so scared. I couldn't get out of my own way. I felt like a crusted over ball of something. And crust busting was born to describe where I was in my life in a particular point in time in 2002, 2003. And I kind of went through the same thing here recently, even though so many things we're doing is really cool. And I work with a great team of people. A friend of mine said to me, why aren't you taking on conversations that get people powered up so that each and every one of us can find that, not that still small voice within, That's what we do on the Dr. Pat Show. That's where we look for that still small voice within, that inner peace. This show is about powering up, getting out of the gate, taking a look at stuff that makes us want to pull every bleeping hair in our head out, makes you grow the hair under your eyes, arms, even if you don't want to. And you step back and you say to yourself, what are the most important things to me today? And how can I find out more about it? I'm going to give you an example. One of the things that I found really interesting from one of our listeners who emailed me, and we have the best listeners on the planet. I love everybody. I mean, my gosh, I meet them in the grocery stores, and honestly, you have to be out here in the Pacific Northwest to do that. But when I go back east and I visit WBLQ, I visit my friends in Jersey and New York, there too. Here's the one question they say to me. They say, Pat, what happened to that girl that went to PS 14, Junior High School 101, that marched on Washington, that fought for civil and human rights with my stepmom, by the way, right? Who did things that had to do with the perspective to represent a bigger population, maybe some that had and maybe some that didn't. So I was asked that question. I was just, what happened to that? And I asked myself that same question. What happened to that? So here's what happened to me. I don't even know if we have the picture of this. I'm going to have to get this to Kat. My friend from like a gazillion years ago, we were talking about Janis Joplin because I used to be a Janis Joplin groupie. I don't know if Kat can dig up Janis Joplin music, but I used to be a Janis Joplin groupie. And so traveled around, actually saw Janis Joplin in her last performance, right? And so here we were, close-up pictures, Janis Joplin, got the tickets. And I said to my friend Laura, I said, Laura, do you remember this? I said, do you remember when back in the day, you actually brought alcohol to concerts? Do you remember when we were like there with that concert? And like I went to the side, and I'm not going to tell you what I was doing on the side, but I went to the side, and out of the side door comes who? The one and only Janis Joplin. So she comes out to the door. I don't know why she came out. The feathers, the whole deal. I'm sitting there with a can of beer in my hand, can of beer, that we are eye to eye, couldn't say a word. And all I could do was hand her my can of beer and say, hey, do you want some? Now, I got to tell you, what is the point to all this that I'm sharing with you? Stay tuned. I'm going to tell you when we come back, because this is a very different version of the Dr. Pat Show. It is an iPower podcast. It is how to power up in your life. And powering up, I'm going to define that when we come back. It's a new show. It's going to be quite controversial. I'm going to talk about some stuff that we do talk about outside of the Dr. Pat Show. And we're going to really set the stage to get engaged. Setting the stage to get engaged. That's what Power Up with me is about. Take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a very new, brand new edition of a new show. Let's just call it an extension of the Dr. Pat Show, right? The Dr. Pat Show was an extension or a conversion of Crust Busting Your Radio and Awesome Life. But on this show, we are talking about things that may or may not be something that you resonate with. We're not going to be sort of that show that doesn't have an opinion. We're going to have opinions about things. And so that's going to be kind of different too, because many of you that have known me over time, over the decades, you know that what I mostly do is I bring on other people. I feature them, honor the work they do. have very little to say about them, except that my goal is to educate and inform, is to really put the things in front of you. But people have said to me recently, and this happened to me like the other day, they said, Pat, actually, they didn't say Pat. They said, dude. I didn't always say dude. So it's like, dude, what do you believe in? Like, dude, like, what happened to you? Don't you like have an opinion? And I had to like, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? And I said, of course I have an opinion. And they said, well, when are you going to do a show where you're taking on some of the toughest conversations that are out there? And then they said something interesting to me. I don't know if Mike Horn is listening to this at all. Then they said something interesting to me. When have you ever shied away from politics? And, it's funny because I don't know if I can even get this clip, but I did a show before the election in 2016. And I was doing this show to talk about the issues. And I had another host call in who just didn't agree. And so what happened in that show, and I didn't learn the lesson, was she totally went off on what I was saying. And she was a fan of the candidate that I wasn't necessarily. But what I remember about that, because of the format of the Dr. Pat show, I remember that I didn't really say very much. Well, those days are gone. They're gone. Those days are gone. Those days of not talking about stuff are gone. And it's because of the 15-year fan base and listeners that want us to be able to have conversations in a way that still honors the dignity of the human spirit. And what I mean by that is that you can talk about political things without calling people names. You could talk about the fact that millions of people, and I was one of them. So what I'm about to say is not just something I'm pulling off some television news station. Millions of people that are going to be denied health care because you have a pre-existing condition. I was one of them. And so let me just tell you what I mean by that is I'm sitting there, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, I have to go buy my insurance. My insurance at that time was $1,200 a month because I had a condition, which I've talked about. And my insurance company was literally ready to deny me future insurance. But then something happened that very day. So I remember being on the phone at a scheduled appointment with my insurance company at the time, because we were going to talk about, they were going to talk about why I was no longer going to be eligible for health insurance, number one. And number two, even if I was, of a mortgage for like a very big house. And I remember him having that call. And so I'm expecting the worst on that call. And the representative, the practitioner I'm talking with, says, we no longer want to talk to you about your health coverage terminating. And I thought, wow, I must have had like somebody pay them off or somebody did something. No, what happened was there was a bill that was passed that has now since gotten some of the worst comments, criticism. I don't even know what to call it. And I don't know what this was like for other people. So I'm not going to talk about it for other people. I'm going to talk about it for me. What this was about for me was some bill that I didn't have any idea was being even considered, that somehow I thought I wasn't included in that population of people, those people. But that bill is known as either Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. And so that day, for me, a conversation that was supposed to happen that was about, wait a minute, we're going to charge you like the $1,800 plan, or basically we're really thinking of dropping you because you have a chronic illness, turned into, we want to talk to you, your new rate I'm saying this was not good, folks. So yeah, the new rate from 1200, 800. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking something is wrong with this picture. Stayed up all night, couldn't sleep, wasn't going to have health care. Honestly, if you knew anything about my medical bills, you'd be like, whoa, that happened for me. Do you know this is the first time I've ever shared that story? So, long story short, what I'm trying to tell you is that I've been challenged by a fan base of listeners now who are asking me, what do you really believe in, Pat? What are you willing to talk about? What are you willing to say? But I want to say something to you guys. I'm a researcher. I studied the consequences of broken promises for 10 years. I wrote you could call it a little book, close to 300 pages, published, referenced now thousands of times on breaking psychological contracts. I know how to research. This show, Powered Up, this show is all going to be about presenting information and taking on some of the tough issues. And, this is kind of interesting for me because today this show came up very suddenly. And I thought, what am I going to talk about? Well, actually, I didn't think about that. Linda, Kat, who's running the show, Jessica, they're like, what are you talking about? I said, why don't we talk about the show that we're planning? So today, I get to thank all of you for letting me do this. I get to thank Mike Horn, Jennifer Horn, for being like, whoa, when are you going to do a show with us? CRN, Transformation Talk Radio. When you put CRN, cable radio together with Transformation Talk Radio and our distribution to 100 media outlets, right? Automatic distribution and Australia. When you put those two things together, hopefully we'll be able to do some transformation work. But let's talk about power. Got to talk about power. Got to talk about the word power. I'm not talking about the TV series Power. We can talk about that too. I'm definitely not going to talk about Game of Thrones, but we could talk about that too, because I don't like to do spoiler stuff. And I'm definitely not going to talk about the Avengers Endgame movie because everybody else is spoiling that for the rest of us. I want to talk about the word power. 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 The ability to do something or act in a particular way, especially as a faculty or quality. That is like a lot of words to say. You either get off your butt and do something or you don't. You either feel like you're fired up to go out into the world and just turn that switch on and whatever it is and do something. Some days for me, it was getting off the couch. That was a major power move. This show is to talk about power. It's to talk about the idea of getting powered up in our lives, expressing our abilities, our capacity, our potentiality, our competencies, what it looks like in order to step forward and create a better world. Now, look, I learned this from young people, really young people. I remember interviewing a 10-year-old a couple of years ago, a 10-year-old. And I had to talk to this young woman, young woman. She's a young woman now. But I interviewed this 10-year-old. And the 10-year-old was like, saw some ad on television about slavery, trafficking. And she turned to her dad and her mom and she said, let's sell lemonade. Let's sell lemonade. And let's sell lemonade so we could give money to end trafficking. So 10 years old, a vision to end sex trafficking. And I asked myself the question today, what is it about us right now in a level of complacency, perhaps, where we're so focused on how high the stock market is that we are so unwilling to take a look at what we are so clear about turning a blind eye to? I'm going to start that blind eye when we come back to talk about the blind eye we turn to one of the most horrific diseases we have not being talked about, transmitted at this point in epidemic proportions beyond HIV. I know you're thinking, what is that? I'm going to talk about that. Then what I'm going to talk about, the fact that this disease now, the disease, the awareness of it, I'm going to talk about this. This disease, this particular disease is not even categorized as a disease in a chronic form. Then what we're going to talk about is the number one group that is totally at risk. And you're going to be shocked when you find out who that is. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Listening to Powered Up Radio. And right now, this is a new Dr. Pat show, a new version of it. This is the show where we're really going to peel back the layers of things. Today was really interesting. Somebody asked me, actually, they gave me the idea. Somebody said to me, look, on this show, are you going to read the Mueller report? And I thought, Kat, you're laughing, right? Right?
Sorry, I left myself unmuted.
It's good. It's good because I thought to myself, how do we get it? So that's a different story. I want to share that story with you. And so then I thought, well, why not? Why not? And this is the show of why not. And that's why I shared that story. Why not? So I want to talk about this thing that I said before the break, because we are now in the month of May. And so the month of May, for those of you out there may or may not know, that was a little pun. We're talking about Lyme disease. Okay, so for those of you that are listening to the show, I want to ask you a simple question. You're thinking right now, maybe, right? Wait a minute, that is that East Coast, like over there thing. That's like New England. That's Connecticut, those places over there, right? Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, that's what it used to be. And as a matter of fact, Lyme, the word Lyme, Lyme, that Lyme disease, right? That comes from a city, a town, right? On the East Coast. And so you have to ask yourself the question, why? Why do we name a disease after a city? All right. So here's a conspiracy theory. You ready? This is the theory. This is it. Some people don't think it's a theory. Some people think this is true. They think once upon a time in the city of Lyme, there was a research facility. And that researchers, right? This is so sad. I don't even think I could even talk about this without just crying as to how disastrous this is. 1975, like imagine this. Like how many years is 75? What year are we in? 1975. Like we're like in 2019. And I'm talking about a disease that doesn't make it to the American Medical Association, right? This is why I'm like fired up. So I'm fired up to be powered up about this, right? Lyme disease first recognized 1975. Why? Researchers investigated. You ready? Wait for it. Why unusual large numbers of who? Children. See, that should have been enough right there, right? That right there. That should have been enough for somebody to just stop the BS and get at the bottom of this. So let me just keep going. Oh, I'm like, I get crazy about this. Diagnosed with what? Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, so I just want to be very clear about this. I'm not a medical doctor. So you can find everything like this on medical websites. Ask your doctor. This is like the origins of Lyme. I'm getting this from News Medical Life Sciences. So I'm reading it from like a thing. So you know I'm not making it up. Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. In what town? Lyme, Connecticut. And there were two neighboring towns, right? So they discovered that most of the children affected live and played near a wooded area where Who else lived there? I'm hoping Kat's going to be able to get the pictures of a video game and an educational device that we're creating for Lyme disease awareness. So I'm going to try to get them to her for the next break. Ticks. Ticks, ticks, lives. So, okay, so children play in wooded areas. Ticks live in wooded areas. Okay, that's it. That's it so far. That's 75. I'm giving you the lowdown. So, all right, what happens then? This is at the height of the tick season. So I guess at the height of the tick season, if you live in Lyme, Connecticut, I lived in the Northeast. I don't know, what are we talking, August? Several of the patients interviewed reported having skin rash just before developing their arthritis. Many also recall being bitten by a tick at the rash site. 1975. Here they go. Further investigation discovered that tiny deer ticks infected with a spiral-shaped bacterium, or we call it a spirochete. That, by the way, I got to just tell you, I had a really horrible experience really recently in a hospital in New Jersey that I'm shocked about. I may talk about it, but I'm shocked about it. You know, I'm from Jersey, and I got to tell you that New Jersey has one of the largest occurrences of babesia, which I'll talk about. OMG, Jersey, you guys should be ashamed of yourself right now that you don't even offer the right test. I'm just saying. Later known, this little spirochete, Borrelia burgdorferi. Borrelia burgdorferi. Some people say Borrelia burgdorferi. I don't know. It sounds Italian. I'm Italian. That this little spirochete was responsible for the outbreak of arthritis in Lyme. So don't you have to ask yourself the question? You get the skin rash, you get the spirochete, right? You marching along, you get this discovery. So wouldn't you think at this point in time, somebody might say, wait, what we need to do with this, we need to be able to look at this thing we're saying about juvenile something or other over here. Oh, and maybe there's like this new disease. Well, they didn't do that. But let me just read a little bit more. So let's get out of the United States for a minute, right? And I'm talking about children now. And by the way, children to this day are in the highest risk groups. So thing one should know about these little ticks, they're not the big fat ticks, although there are some researchers now saying them too, and mosquitoes. But they're the teeny little ticks, right? The ones you really can't see, right? So here we are in Europe, a skin rash similar to that of Lyme disease that also been described in medical literature dating back to the 20th century. That's like way back, right? So Lyme disease may have spread, so they say, from Europe to the United States. But they don't know that. People don't know that. So this month, you're probably going to get a lot of information in your inbox. Or if you want, I would suggest you start to look at and Google, right? You take a look and Google Lyme disease. And the reason I say this is that unless you live, and you're fortunate, like I am, to live in a state where we have some of the best natural doctors. And I want to talk about this for a minute because this is a misconception. When you look at the doctors that are graduating from Bastyr University here in Washington State, here's what I want to do to clear this up before we go any strange place. People think natural doctors aren't real doctors, NDs. Let me tell you how the process works. If you look at my doctor, goes to school, takes all of the science classes, everything that a medical MD doctor, everything. They all take the same stuff. Where they split apart is they all take the biologies, the whole thing. Where they split apart is somewhere along the way, somebody has to say to you, what kind of doctor do you want to be? So somebody's going to say, well, I want to be a surgeon. No, I want to be this. I want to be this. I want to be that. And off you go and you say, no, I want to study the different aspects of natural medicine. So here's what I want to say about this. That doesn't mean that you don't get certified in anti-aging, or you don't get certified and become a certified oncologist. All of that happens. But I happen to live in a state with some doctors who had to fight with the Attorney General and the health department because our state even refused to acknowledge that Lyme disease originated from here. And it's really true. They didn't have the statistics, and here's why. If you were to come and ask for a test from the CDC here back in 04 and 05 and 06, and you said to them, I would like you to have my test. I would like to have a test. They would say to you, well, there's no need for you to have that test because we don't have that disease here. So when they said that to me, I looked at the guy straight in the eye and I basically said, Doctor, can you tell me how the tick knows not to come on the deer, and then the deer knows not to come in the state of Washington? Can you just give me an idea how that happens? Can you kind of describe to me like the intelligence, like there's this tick and it's only going to stay where? New York. It's not going to go from New York. It's not going to get on the deer. The deer is not going to go. It's not going to go. It's going to like say, oh my God, don't cross that. No, like there's a wall. Do not go from Idaho or California. Don't go from there to Oregon. So I said that to the CDC doctor. He looked at me and he was not happy. Snickety, or what is the word that was used yesterday? I don't know that word. But he looked at me like I was asking the most disgustingly lame question. And then I said to him, well, back on the East Coast where I was born, we have the disease there. He looked at me and he said, oh, there you go. Where are you from? I said, New Jersey. Perfect. You're from New Jersey. You got it there. We'll give you the test. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what it is to be powered up, what it means to take action. Also, what it means is to get in touch with that thing that's gnawing at you inside and to think to yourself, what can I do to create positive change? And I do mean positive change. You can still be fired up, powered up, and still be positive. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. Look, I was talking about 1975 and talking about Lyme disease. Yeah. So what I want to say here is that we are talking about a devastating disease that kills. Let's fast forward to where we are now. So May of this year is Lyme Disease Awareness Month. And what it does, it reminds us to be vigilant. So one of the ways to get powered up is to be educated about this, but more importantly, it's to also take the message out. Today, when I got ready to do this show, I thought, what am I going to talk about today? What am I most powered up about today? And I realized that we are in the second day of May, and this is Lyme Disease Awareness Month. Much has changed. For us here, we are creating a video game and maybe even a board game that has to do with taking these ideas about the ticks, about the disease, about the co-infections, and about the heroes, those things that we now know work to battle Lyme disease. But I want to make you aware of something. Lyme Disease Awareness Month, it's also helped by the global impact of a teen created free tick tracker app. So I want to tell you about this because you can't just talk about something without giving people some help. Lyme disease. Okay. So here's the thing. Olivia Goudreau promotes Tick Tracker to help others avoid serious illness all over the world, but suffering from Lyme disease herself. And so in support of the focus, right, we're looking at what this means to download the Tick Tracker app, which is available at Google Play and Apple App Stores. So created by a 14-year-old. This is why I'm saying you got to get powered up here. You got to be ready to do something, because like our 10-year-olds, our 14-year-olds, man, they are putting us to shame. 14-year-old Olivia, combat tick transmitted infection and diseases. The app uses a patent pending algorithm to coordinate multiple tick activity data sources into a simple and user-friendly map. OMG. We're actually going to be contacting Olivia. We're trying to get an interview with her. Hopefully she'll be on the show next week. But Tick Tracker continues to grow and has users in countries across the globe. Because I just want to be very clear. These ticks, this disease, it has no borders. It has no borders. If you're thinking, no, I don't live on the East Coast. And up until a few years ago, when we started to do walks and marches here in the state of Washington, that was a case too. If you're in Oregon and then people are saying, oh, we don't have ticks here, you have ticks. If you're saying, wait a minute, we're in the middle, we don't have these ticks. No, that is not true. The problem is that the CDC and others don't want to report the activity. As a matter of fact, recently in New Jersey, we battled this very specifically with doctors, CDC, and the hospital who tried to pinpoint a patient strain of Babesia on a trip to Bermuda, after the patient herself was bitten by ticks 3 months earlier on multiple doxycycline, and none of the doctors were smart enough to aware enough to know this, and the body was 98% Babesia. So look up Babesia, it's a killer. So Tick Tracker. So let's get you to Tick Tracker, because we got to make this, got to power this up, and you got to push it out. Tick Tracker app, very cool. Play Store. What does Tick Tracker do? I love this. I love this. This is so cool. Here's how it works, right? You get a tick sighting, tells you how to safely remove it. There's a video. Go to ticktracker.com. Ticktracker.com. Right? You're going to find this. So there's a little video on this. I don't know if Kat can get the video clip on this from ticktracker.com. Maybe we can play it on Facebook, or maybe at least somehow grab this. But the bottom line is, you got to watch the video. You got to watch this. But what a brilliant idea. What a brilliant idea. This is the first app that helps users report and track ticks in real time. Why? Because the CDC is not doing it. I'm just saying that. That's why. Real time. So when you start to look at people that are actually, oh my God, I got a tick, I'm being like right around the corner from us. You can come here, you can download it, and you get alert, because we have to be able to tell people you can do some things to prevent the catastrophic effects of Lyme disease. Lyme disease is known as the great imposter. There are some doctors that actually believe that autoimmune diseases don't really exist, that it's one form or another of one of the co-infections or parasites or something that have to do with how many of this little teeny weeny baby tick carries. So we call it tick-borne illness now. So we don't even call it Lyme anymore. We call it tick-borne illness now, because these tick-borne things, right? These ticks carry so many co-infections that the traditional tests we have, and by the way they test Lyme now, if you don't pass the first tier of screening, they don't really give you the full test. But there are other ways to get a test that will help you. Number one, you got to find a Lyme literate doctor. Number two, you got to find a real test. Next week, we'll be doing a show specifically to bring more information on this. I don't know if we're going to do it at the noon hour, but we are going to do 2 hours of Power Up here on Thursdays. So go to Trick Tracker. That's going to help you. The other thing is, I'm going to be sending out an email. We're going to talk about this show, and we are going to ask you guys, what do you want us to get powered up about? We're going to start to engage with you on social media. We're going to ask you for the things that are most important to you, and then we're going to take them on. And yes, I really am considering reading the Mueller report. I don't know if I'll do it on this show. But when I asked the question about the Mueller report, I was really shocked. Many people don't know that you can even get it. So this is the kind of show that's going to provide you with information. What you do to get powered up in your life, what you do to form your opinions, what you do to decide what you stand for or believe in, that ball is going to be in your court. We're here to help you take the shot. So I'm looking forward to really doing this show. Lots to come on it. Want to thank our friends at CRN, Mike Horn, Jennifer Horn, and the team here at Transformation Talk Radio. Kat, this was a last minute announcement to plug this show in. And this is Powered Up Radio. This is where you come to get powered up and take action on your own behalf. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. We got another hour coming up. We got a great show getting ready to play for you right now. Stay tuned.